I have been wanting to try chicken buns for ages, but for some reason I never did it. Today I finally went for it, and honestly, I should have done this way sooner. What I ended up with was a full-on carnivore burger. Juicy beef patties, crispy bacon, melted cheddar, and chicken egg cheese buns to hold it all together. It's rich, it's heavy, and yeah, with the amount of cheese in this one, I would call it more of a cheat meal. Unless you're eating one meal a day. Then it actually works out perfectly. In order to build this protein-packed beast, I used 300 grams of minced beef, about 150 grams of chicken breast, one large egg, or in my case it's going to be two small eggs, around 70 grams of cheddar cheese, and a few slices of bacon to finish it off. Pretty simple. But remember, the chicken is for the buns, not the filling. That's what makes this burger different. I start with the chicken breast. Nothing fancy here. Straight into the air fryer at 180 degrees Celsius for 8 minutes. I lined the basket with parchment paper, but of course, the chicken still stuck a little because parchment never behaves the way that you want it to. While that's cooking, I move on to the cheese. I had a nice block of cheddar and my plan was to shred just half of it. But you know how that goes. Once you start shredding and it's coming off perfectly, you just keep on going. So in the end, I shredded more than half of the block, which gave me around 70 grams. That all goes into a bowl and gets set aside for later. After 8 minutes, I open up the air fryer, flip the chicken, and like I said, it's sticking to the parchment a bit. I get it flipped, then straight back in for another 9 minutes at the same temperature. That gives it a nice, even cook without drying it out. Once the chicken is done, I don't touch it right away. I let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. This does two things. It finishes cooking inside, and it cools down a little so it doesn't turn into lava when I start shredding. After that rest, I slice it up into small pieces. You could also shred it with forks if you want, but chopping worked just fine. Then I let it rest a few more minutes. You don't want to add hot chicken straight into cheese. If it's too warm, it will just melt everything before you even get started. Now I bring back the bowl of shredded cheese. In goes the cooled chicken, and then I crack in one egg. I started with my hands, but didn't like the feel of it, so I mixed it with a spoon. But as I was stirring, I noticed the mixture wasn't binding the way I wanted. The egg was too small for the amount of cheese and chicken, so I grabbed another small egg and cracked that in too. With two eggs, it came together perfectly. Sticky, cohesive, and thick enough to shape into little buns. But if you have really large eggs, one will be just enough. Next, I pull out the air fryer tray again and drop in a silicone liner. This is the part where I wish I had a bigger air fryer, because with the mixture I could only fit 3 patties at a time. I shaped them as evenly as I could and set them down. For the first cook, I set the air fryer to 190 degrees Celsius and gave them 6 minutes. When the timer beeped, I opened it up and grabbed a spatula. Honestly, I thought flipping them would be a pain, but they came up way easier than expected. Flip, flip, flip. Then back in for another 6 minutes. When I pulled them out, I laid them on a cutting board. At this point the buns looked really good, except one of them. One just looked kind of silly, like it didn't want to cooperate. That's fine though, because every group has one weirdo. I still had some batter left, so I repeated the process with the silicone liner and made 2 more buns. That gave me 5 in total, which was perfect for the burgers I was planning. Of course, I couldn't resist. I grabbed the silly looking one, pulled a piece, and took a bite. It was really hot, almost too hot to handle, but it actually tasted amazing. Crispy edges, cheesy inside, and enough structure to hold up as a bun. At this point, I knew this burger idea was going to work. Now that the buns are ready, it's time to make everything else that turns this into a proper burger. I start with the bacon. A couple of slices go straight into the pan with just a touch of butter. You don't need much because the bacon renders its own fat, but that little bit of butter gives it an extra richness and helps it crisp evenly. While that's cooking, I move to the beef. I've got 300 grams of minced beef and I split it into 4 equal balls. Once the bacon is done, I pull it out and set it aside. Each ball gets pressed out into a thick patty. Into the pan they go, and right away I sprinkle a little bit of salt on top. After a few minutes on one side, they get flipped, and you can see that brown crust forming. Exactly what you want. Since I already call this a cheat meal, thanks to the cheese-heavy buns, I figure I might as well lean into it and add more cheese. I put slices of some leftover Gouda cheese right on top of the patties, let them melt down, and then pull the patties off the heat. At this point the kitchen smells incredible. Beef, bacon, cheese, all ready to be stacked together. And now comes the fun part, building what is honestly a protein-packed monster of a burger. I grab one of the chicken buns and spread just a little bit of sour cream on it. Not a lot, just enough to give it that creamy bite. Then one of the beef patties goes on top, followed by two slices of crispy bacon. For a second I thought about stacking a second patty on there, which I tried, but let's be honest, it would have been way too much. I wanted this thing to be edible without needing a knife and fork. So I decided to stick with one patty per burger, which still leaves me with two extra patties on the side. No complaints there. The buns hold everything together surprisingly well. They have got enough structure from the chicken and cheese to act like real buns, but they're still soft enough to bite through. And with the sour cream, beef, bacon and melted cheese all layered in, it looks like a proper carnivore burger. Finally, it's time for the taste test. I pick one of them up, it's a little messy, but that's part of the fun, and take a big bite. Right away, it's amazing. The beef is juicy, the bacon gives that crunch and saltiness, and the chicken cheese bun actually works. It's sturdy, cheesy, and adds flavor instead of being just something to hold the meat. I will definitely be making these again. With the amount of cheese that we used, I would call this more of a cheat meal as I said before. But the macros honestly make it a perfect for a one meal a day dish too. For everything I used today, not counting the sour cream and the extra Gouda, it came to 1597 calories with 113 grams of fat and 142 grams of protein. That's some serious fuel in burger form. So yeah, this is one of those experiments that paid off big time. If you're looking for a heavy, satisfying carnivore meal that's still fun to eat, give this one a try. And let me know down in the comments if you want me to add macros in my future recipes as well. I included them today thanks to somebody who suggested that in one of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like, comment, and I'll meet you here next time on Meat Carnivore.